Hi, and welcome to the Parsha class. Parshat Shemot, we started a new Chumash and a new story. Now we're focusing on the Jewish people as a nation and not just as a family. Very exciting time and a very short class today, though, from Taam Dagan. Not a lot there about food, but enough that it's worth mentioning and some lessons we can learn that we can take with us, I hope. Let's see. Our source here, the Taam Dagan on Shemot, in which the Torah teaches lessons about the benefits of breast milk, the importance of hospitality, earning the blessings of Israel's land, and more. So let's see, chapter 2, verse 7. We have the birth of Moshe. Moshe, our leader, our teacher, the one who's going to be taking us by hand throughout the rest of the Torah. So he's born, of course, when he's born, he's a baby. He's born into the Jewish people when, at a time when our lives were basically threatened by the Egyptians, and therefore, just a moment. Therefore, it was a very precarious situation he was in. His mother tried to keep him hidden, and then when he was born and he was no longer able to be hidden, she trusted Hashem and fate, and put him in a basket on the river, on the Nile River, where he is found by Basia, the daughter of Paro, uh, by Batia, Tomer Achoto, and he's taken and he's rescued, but he won't eat from the. It seems that he will not eat from the Egyptians, and that's what we'll probably be focusing on. V'tomer Achoto, his sister, who was standing by, watching this basket the whole time, Miriam, she says, El Bat Paro, to the daughter of Paro, Ha'elech karati lach isha mineket. I can go find a nursemaid, min ha'ivriot, from the Jewish women. V'tinek lach et hayel, and she can nurse the baby for you. And of course, she then goes and finds her own mother, and the baby's mother, as it happens. And so she has the paid job of taking care of her own baby. Meanwhile, we have to have some understanding of why it is that Moshe didn't eat this, and if that affects us at all in any way as well. Moshe would not nurse from Egyptian nursemaids because eating non-kosher affects one's Torah, despite it being permissible for a Jewish baby to nurse from a Gentile. So although it's allowed, it can have negative repercussions spiritually. Batia wants Moshe to be nursed by a Jewish woman because she realizes he is Jewish. How she realizes that, where it's not exactly clear. It says in the verse that she saw him, and maybe she saw the Brit Milah, or maybe the way he was crying was very. It showed the kind of empathy that we've been famous for. It's not exactly clear. There are different commentaries on that. Anyway, she realizes that he's Jewish, and a Jewish woman's milk would be more fitting to his nature. That's the opinion of the Sforno. The sages are concerned that a child eating non-kosher food may be permanently affected by a spiritual decline. So the food that a Jewish child takes in affects them spiritually. They therefore explain that Moshe does not nurse from Batia and her Egyptian women because he would one day speak to Hashem and transmit his Torah, necessitating Miriam to bring Yocheved in to nurse her son. The halacha teaches that we should try to avoid nursing a Jewish child from someone who does not eat kosher. We do not have to be strict, however. It is just an act of piety. In other words, this says the Rashba that might be what the Talmud seems to imply, that that's the halacha, but it doesn't have to be the halacha. And indeed, we see in Shulchan Aruch 155, number Sif Aleph, in the Yoredea, that indeed it is allowed. Some suggest that the reason is the same for all Jewish children. Now, the question is, of course, are all Jewish children going to speak to Hashem and transmit his Torah? Potentially, the answer is yes. Therefore, all Jewish children should be raised in a manner befitting someone who will learn and teach Torah on the highest level, says Rav Yaakov Kamenetsky. However, this is not a racial issue. Even with this stricture, we can nurse Jewish babies from non-Jewish women, from a non-Jewish woman who eats strictly kosher food. 1 second. A nursing mother should be careful regarding what she eats because her food affects the spiritual growth of her child, says the Ramah. See? It's a good thing I did that. Okay. Um, Even if a Jewish mother was compelled to eat non-kosher food for health reasons at some point, her milk may still negatively impact her baby. So we're careful about that, even if she had to, for whatever reason, eat not kosher food. This should not be confused for the halacha that a Jewish woman should not nurse a Gentile baby. This is not the case where it is for the benefit of this also I should say this also is not the case when it is for the benefit of the Jewish woman who, for instance, is in pain from producing too much milk. So a quote here from Bill Bryson's book, The Body, a Guide for Occupants, says one of the most extraordinary features of early life is that nursing mothers produce over 200 kinds of complex sugars. The formal name is oligosaccharides in their milk that their babies cannot digest because humans lack the necessary enzymes. The oligosaccharides are produced purely for the benefit of the baby's gut microbes, as bribes in effect. As well as nurturing symbiotic bacteria, breast milk is full of antibodies. There's some benefit that a nursing mother absorbs, some evidence, sorry, that a nursing mother absorbs a little of her suckling baby's saliva through her breast ducts, and this is analyzed by her immune system, which adjusts the amount and type of antibodies she supplies to the baby according to its needs. Isn't life marvelous? He says. By 1962, only 20% of American women breastfed their babies. By 1977, this has increased to 40%, still clearly a minority. Today, almost 80% of American women breastfeed just after birth. The number falls to 49% after 6 months and 27% after a year. In Britain, the proportion starts at 81%, but then plunges to 34% after 6 months and just 0.5% after a year, the worst rate in the developed world. In the poorer nations, many women were long encouraged by advertising to believe that infant formula was better for their babies than their own milk, and so began switching to formula. But formula was expensive, so they often watered it down to make it go further. Sometimes also the only water available to them was less clean than their own breast milk. The result in some places was an increase in childhood mortality. Although formulas have greatly improved over the years, no formula can fully replicate the immunological benefits of mother's milk. So just something about breastfeeding and its importance in halacha and as well as in general health. Okay, chapter 2, verse 20. Here we have Moshe Rabbeinu has escaped Mitzrayim and he's gone to Midian where he has saved, rescued the daughters of Yitro, who went to get water for their sheep, and they were chased off by other shepherds. They come back a lot earlier than expected. I guess he expected them to be harassed. Interesting father he is, Yitro, and he asks, "Why are you back so early?" And they said, "Because an Egyptian-looking man saved us." He says, "Well, in that case, Vayomer el benotav, vayo." He says to his daughters, and okay, and where is he? Lama zeh azavten et haish, kirin lo v'yochal lachem. Where is he? Why did you leave? Why have you left him? Um, why have you left this man? And call him in so he can eat bread. So what does that mean? Eat bread. So we'll see in a moment. It might mean more than what you thought. So it is proper, first of all, to feed a kind stranger. That's a concept in Hachnasat Orchim. If you know a kind person, you should invite them. It's good to have them in your home. There could be a good influence. We've talked about this before as well. Yitro's generosity, by the way, was rewarded and allows for his descendants to sit as judges on the court in Yerushalayim. This is for the Gemara in Sanhedrin 104a. Bread represents marriage, as in Bereshit 39:6. We've talked about that when we were there with Eliezer. Lechem, here we have this bread that he's inviting, he's telling his daughters to go get this guy. He's basically saying, I want this guy as my son-in-law, right? Bring him in so we can give him bread means bring him in so one of you can marry him. And as indeed happens, right? Moshe marries his wife, and who's one of Yitro's daughters, and she in turn has a son, his sons Eliezer and Menashe. Uh, Gershom and sorry, Elazar and Gershom. Sorry. Okay. So chapter 3, verse 8. We have the famous, probably one of the most famous scenes in the Torah of Moshe at the burning bush and his conversation with Hashem when Hashem uh, basically marks Moshe as the person who's going to go save the Jewish people. Ve'ared hatzilo miyad Mitzrayim. I'm going. Hashem is saying, I'm going to go down and save them from Mitzrayim, from the Egyptians. Ulahaloto min haaretz hahi, and take them out of this land. Min haaretz hahi el eretz tova urchava, to a great and large land. El eretz zavat chalav udvash, a land flowing with milk and honey. El makom haknani, to the place of the Canaanite, Hachiti, Haemori, V'haprizi, V'hachivi, V'hayevusi. So the place where that has sustained these many nations: the Canaanite, the Hittite, the Prizite, the Hivite, and the Jebusite. So Hashem in His Torah describes the Holy Land of Israel as being a land of milk and honey because it is pleasant and healthy. Right? It's just like milk and honey are pleasant and enjoyable and sweet and pleasant. So is the land of Israel pleasant and healthy. It's good for you. The air there is good for you. As the wisest of men, that Shlomo Melech says in Mishlei, to eat honey because it is good. It's good for you to eat honey. Honey is healthy. Same thing with wise. Therefore, that's why we are able to. That's why what Israel is good for. It's good because it is a healthy place, and health being one of the let's call it foundations of this class, right? What's healthy in food, etc. So therefore, it's worth mentioning here as well. By the way, this verse, according to Shach in Yeridea, 87:9, says this is the source for the concept that we've all basically seemingly accepted, that it's permissible to eat milk, to drink milk. Milk is part of an animal, and it's not necessarily a shechted animal. So how are we allowed to eat it? Why isn't it a piece of a living animal? And the answer is because this verse mentions it as something you can eat. You can't get milk from a dead animal, from a shechted animal. You can only get it, well, not enough of it anyway. You can only get it from a living animal, and therefore milk is something we are allowed to eat. This is true even though milk is a byproduct of blood, says the Gemara in Bechorot 7b. Only when the Torah explicitly allows such a metamorphosis can a food be eaten, says so the Magen Avraham. So it's not, if we can't make these decisions up on our own. Just because something comes from an animal doesn't mean it's kosher, right? A spit or I don't know, something gross muse like that would not be considered kosher. Magen Avraham is telling us that it's only because the Torah says that it says it like this, that it compares it to a food like honey, which is, by the way, also, if you think about it, that is actually spit, right? The spit of bees is what makes honey. So so honey also is only kosher because the Torah says so. Happens to be, I didn't want to dwell too much on this right now. We'll probably talk about this later, but the honey that we're talking about with regard to Israel isn't bee honey, it's actually date honey. So again, still sweet, still sticky, still healthy, but indeed date honey. And the last piece I have for this week, that's why it's a shorter class than usual. I apologize, or you're welcome, whichever, however you want to put it. It says the last chapter 3, verse 17, still part of this conversation. It says Va'omar, and I've said, and it seems very repetitious to the previous verse, and this is why it's so powerful here. Ele etchem ani Mitzrayim. I'm going to bring you out from the affliction of Mitzrayim, of Egypt, El Eretz HaKnani, v'Hachiti, v'Hamori, v'Haprizi, v'Hachivi, v'Hayevusi, and I'm going to take you to the land of the Canaanite, the Hittite, the Amorite, the Perizzite, the Hivite, and the Jebusite, El Eretz Zavat Chalav Udvash, to a land of um, uh, right, so a land that's flowing with milk and honey. So what's the difference between this verse and the verse 9 verses earlier? In this verse, Hashem mentions that the land is the Canaanites, etc., before mentioning it's being blessed with milk and honey. Right? So it had milk and honey earlier in the previous verse, it had milk and honey, and then the Canaanite and the Jebusite, etc. Here we have the Canaanite and the Jebusite, etc., and then the idea that it's flowing with milk and honey. What's going on? Why the switch? It's because it is not yet worthy of that blessing until the Jews take possession of it. So yes, it's very healthy. Yes, it's there, but we have to earn it. We have to behave a certain way for that to be actualized. And when that happens, that's when indeed it will be a land flowing with milk and honey. And that's the focus. That's what this is according to the Malbim, why this verse sort of switches this phrase with the other phrase in this verse. Anyway, thank you for listening, and I hope you have a great rest of your week. And hope you'll join me again next week for more on food in the Parsha in Taam Dagan. Thank you very much.